You're listening to Bookin' Around Town with Jacques on the audio flow.
Hey guys, welcome to a special edition of Bookin' Around Town. I'm your host, Jacques, and today we are booking around the town or city of Irving, Texas. And in case you didn't know, Texas is one of my favorite places. And if I ever had to move, I might have to move to Texas and saddle it up with my cowboy boots and my hat. Yeah, but it's sweaty there and it's hot and they have mosquitoes, so maybe not. But I'm excited to be here today because I am chatting with an author who wrote a book that is a little bit different than some of the other books that we have on the show, and that's the reason why I wanted to chat with her. It's a book that I think a lot of young, especially African American boys can relate to, African American families, and I really want to get into her brain about the concept of the story and how it actually came to fruition. Today's guest wrote the book When Davonte's Father Went to Prison, and I think this is her first book, and we're going to learn a little bit more about her and behind the scenes of the story. So please help me welcome today's author, Kimberly Ballou. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to Bookin' Around Town. How are you?
I'm great, Jacqueline. Thanks so much.
Well, good. So I know that you are in Texas. So please tell me, make me feel good. What's the weather like there right now?
The weather is really nice. It's in the high 60s and the sun is shining brightly. The sky is blue. It's beautiful.
Okay, so that didn't make me feel good, actually, since it's...
This is why I left the Midwest.
Oh my gosh, I am totally not mad at you for that. I spent a little time in Arizona, and I am kicking myself that I am here. I mean, granted, the sun has been out a lot more than it normally is, but it's cold. Ugh.
Yes.
So jealous.
I feel for you. I really, really do.
You don't feel for me that much. You're enjoying the blue sky and the sun.
I certainly sympathize.
Okay, that sounds better. Thank you. I appreciate you. So it is October, and we are just getting ready. People are celebrating Halloween and all of that good stuff. And so my favorite holiday is coming around, Thanksgiving. And I'm a big fan of Thanksgiving. Now, do you or does your family have any type of Thanksgiving traditions, or do you have like a special dish that just has to be around the table every year?
Well, it might seem strange to your listeners, but I have to tell you, I am a huge fan of cabbage. I don't need meat. I don't need poultry. I don't need anything. But if there's no cabbage on the table, it does not feel like a holiday.
I love it. Cabbage is your turkey.
Yes, exactly.
I am totally... I'm sorry,
I might not even eat turkey.
Oh,
but
see,
I'm going to eat the cabbage.
Yes, I am totally not mad. See, I am fist bumping the computer screen right now because I'm really, for Thanksgiving, and I don't think we do cabbage. We usually do that for Christmas, but I'm big on vegetables. I like my mixed greens.
Yes.
I like my cabbage. I like my green beans. Every now and then, I might be able to eat broccoli if my stomach does right. But
that's another favorite.
See, I'm all about it. Now, okay, so that's the thing for you. Cabbage has to be on the table. Now, do you have a Thanksgiving dessert that you are a big fan of, or do you
pineapple upside down cake?
Oh my God, I'm so in love with you right now.
Pineapple upside down cake. Do you know that's one left over from childhood? My mother used to make that just for me because it was my favorite, and I think that's where all the memories are tied in, and the comfort food and the gratitude. Oh. If I had a table and there was nothing on it but cabbage and pineapple upside down cake, I'd be fine.
Oh, see, and I could come and eat at that table because I would be fine too. And it's so funny you mentioned the pineapple upside down cake. My grandmother was big on making those. And to this day, my mom is always like, I don't need a birthday cake. Mom, can you make, telling my grandmother to make her a cake. And so a couple of months ago, I decided, I think, what was the last holiday we just had, like Labor Day or something?
Labor Day.
Okay, and I said I wanted to do a different type of dessert. And so I said, I'm going to make sort of little pineapple upside down cupcake cake things. And so I kind of went online. I said, there's got to be something where I can make this cake in a cupcake pan. And so that's what I did. I made it just like the cake. I put the syrup at the bottom and the crushed pineapples and the brown sugar and poured the cake mix in the cake pan. And oh my gosh, they were a hit. And so now
I'll bet.
Yes. And so my mom yesterday was like, well, can you make some of those little pineapple upside down cake thingies? And so that's what I'm doing this week for my mom.
I started something.
Yeah. And they're good for like breakfast when you're having your coffee or your cappuccino or tea or whatever it is. And you just got that perfect bite. And yeah, I'll send you pictures once I make some things. Yeah. So I'm with you all about the traditions. And okay, so Thanksgiving. So what about Christmas? So this will tell me if you and I are going to stay friends through the remainder of this podcast, okay? So I have people who start decorating or thinking about Christmas at the end of October. Like even before Thanksgiving, they're all about, getting these Christmas decorations out and stuff like that. So I just need to know, are you one of those people who starts decorating for Christmas around Thanksgiving, or do you at least wait until after Thanksgiving and it's actually December?
Okay, listen.
Uh-oh.
I grew up at a time when each holiday was celebrated separately, and it had its own customs and own traditions and own decorations. One at a time.
Yes.
Halloween, then we do Thanksgiving, then we do Christmas. So my Christmas decorations typically go up 1 week before Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
Because otherwise, by the time Christmas comes, I'm sick of them.
Wait, I gotta give you the hand clap because that is so me. That is so me. I am just like that. I normally wait till like December 20th and I'm like, okay, let me put it up. And then the day after Christmas, I'm like, okay, we've already opened the gifts. The tree can go back in the box now.
You're worse than I am. I at least wait till New Year's.
Oh, really? No. There's nothing under that tree. It's just a tree now.
I just like the lights, I think.
Okay, I'll give you that. The lights are nice. But at least
soothing.
At least you keep everything separate. That makes me happy.
Yes, because each holiday, you have all the great Halloween decorations, and there's some good Thanksgiving decorations now. And then Christmas. And then if you just go straight to Christmas, you miss all of that.
Yes, I believe that Thanksgiving is the most looked over holiday, and especially because my birthday is around that time. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my birthday and Thanksgiving are looked over the most of the time. So anyway, but I'm glad you and we can stay friends. You just earned your friend point, so I appreciate you. Well, let's talk a little bit about your book, because I think and Juanita introduced us, and I know that you did another podcast with somebody, and she kind of introduced me to your book here, and it is one of those titles that kind of really speaks for itself. But then after reading the blurb, you find out that there are some other things that play along with that. And so I kind of want to get an idea from you about what inspired this particular story, how it came to fruition, and just kind of get an idea about it, why you actually decided to write this book.
Okay, that's great. Well, it all came about really organically, Jacqueline. I was a teacher, a fourth grade teacher, and I taught in the voucher schools in Milwaukee, and they're voucher schools for low-income people. And each year, at least one or two of my students would have a parent in prison. And so I started looking for books to kind of introduce this topic to my classroom without putting those students on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted the other kids to kind of know, what their classmates might be dealing with.
Right.
And so I went on my search and, I looked online and spoke to a number of different children's librarians. I spoke to the children's booksellers, and I could not find the book I needed. And the book I needed was, first of all, it had this topic, the topic of a parent in prison. Second of all, I wanted one that featured African American characters because my students were 99.9% African American and representation is important. Then also, a lot of times my classrooms would be filled with students who were 1 or 2 or more grade levels behind in reading, but they would not read a picture book. They call those baby books. So I needed a chapter book that was written a couple of grade levels below 4th grade. And I could not find a book that combined all of those elements. I could find the picture books that featured African American characters. They did me no good. My students wouldn't read them. I could find the higher level books for junior high school students and above, the young adult books about a parent in prison. My students couldn't read those, so those were no good for me. I did find a couple of chapter books, but the main character was Caucasian. So that wasn't really what I was looking for. So after a while, and the librarians and the children's booksellers, they were all telling me, we wish we had something. There's just nothing out there. So finally, and you'll learn this about my personality, I got fed up and wrote the book I needed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I used it in my classroom at first, and it went really well with my students. They loved it. They could relate to the characters. Even if they didn't have a parent in prison, many of the situations were ones that other students could relate to about, the neighborhood and things like that. So eventually, fast forward a few years, and I've tried to get this book published traditionally. And what I was hearing from agents was the problem that, we don't have an issue with your writing or anything, but we just don't want to take on a project like this right now because it's not easy to sell.
Right.
And they're all about making money, which I can understand. It's a business. It's not a charity. So finally, I had a friend who self-published a book. And she told me that, the process was not nearly as difficult as it used to be. And so I decided, sort of on the spot, I'm going to self-publish this book because I wrote it to help students. And it doesn't help them if it's not in their hands.
Right. I feel like a lot of people sort of came to grips with writing certain things because they couldn't find that particular topic in any book. And so they kind of did what you did and decided it needs to be told. And, if I have to self-publish, I have to self-publish. And you're right. When you can't find what you're looking for, sometimes you just have to do it yourself.
Yes.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the other struggles or the other situations that are in the book. And if you want to tell us a little bit about the story, because first of all, I like the cover. I like that there's, this little black boy on the cover, and he's like drawing this picture. It's got daddy on it. And it really, again, shows how important fathers are. The relationship between fathers and their sons and fathers and their children. And he's drawn this picture of him and his dad holding hands. And so what's kind of some of the other things that we can look forward to learning about what's going on in the family structure in the story?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked that question. Well, first of all, let me say the title of the book is When Davonte's Father Went to Prison. I kept it short and simple. But the thing that you need to know is that Davonte, who is a 10-year-old kid, just an ordinary kid, he has a fantastic relationship with his father. And his father is a good parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times we think of people in prison as being all bad.
Right.
But if you have a child left at home and this parent was a good parent, regardless of the other things that that parent may have done to that child, they are grieving because they've lost their parent in the home.
Right.
And that's something that Davonte has to go through, the entire grief process. So you'll kind of see that throughout the book. But also the things that happen to the rest of the family once the primary breadwinner is removed from the home. So, the Durante, his mother, and his baby sister end up moving out of their nice home into a cramped apartment. And Durante experiences things in the neighborhood that he's never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all of those kinds of issues, like Durante's adjustments to being in a very different socioeconomic level than he had been for most of his life.
Yeah.
Though you don't think about those things, and I think we tend to think of kids as being really adaptable, and he does adapt, but it's a process.
Right. How was your research? I know that you were in a school system and a teacher. Did you kind of have conversations, or was it just things that you saw that was going on with some of your students that helped you kind of plot out some of the details in the story?
There were a lot of things that happened in the book that I took directly from statements made by my students. So they were my primary sources. Now, I did go and do some reading in secondary sources for my research to make sure that, what the students were telling me also matched what the research said, because I didn't want to give incorrect information.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I used what the students told me. And the sad thing is, in this particular story, their home is raided. And the sad thing is that the details of that raid came from 3 different students.
Wow.
Yes.
But they were all living in different homes, or were they all living?
Oh, yes, they weren't related. These were raids that happened at 3 different times. In fact, 2 different states.
Wow. So
Yes.
basically they all went through the same or very similar situations.
Exactly.
Which sounds it can be very traumatic. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So did you see any differences in some of those students after they had an opportunity to read this book? Do you think it also served as kind of a therapy for them to be able to read these stories and kind of get a different viewpoint?
Absolutely, because the whole point of this story is that it is a story of hope through a horrific situation. But at the end, Durante is hopeful, and he's, if not happy that his dad is in prison, he is at least content that he will be okay. And what I saw in my students was they tended to be very closed off. And in the process of reading this book and doing the activities that I did as a teacher with this book, what I saw was those students opening up. Certainly they opened up to me, and that enabled me to help them as a teacher in other ways. But I just saw them opening up in general in the classroom. They were talking more. They were raising their hands more. It was as if this book brought them into the fold, because they saw, okay, first of all, it's not just them, that the feelings that they experienced were quite normal and other kids experienced them, because I think that's one of the isolating factors that children face. It's like everyone in the family wants to keep it this big secret so the kids don't get the support that they need. And they never get to see, hey, I'm not the only one who feels angry and sad and lonely and scared and, any one of 10 different other emotions, negative emotions.
What I love about this is that you saw a need and you took it upon yourself to try to help with that need, and that there's a lot of different ways that children can and people can receive therapy. And so this is just one of those things. When I was in school, there was something called play therapy, where we would use different games, or we would have, kind of these other different things that would help kids open up about traumatic things or things that they've gone through. And so that's kind of how I see this book too, is a kind of, I don't know, reading therapy maybe, and that they were able to see this was my situation, and I can be a Davonte. And, or I can be, even if the parents, were reading these books with their children, they could be like the mom, or they can be, the little sister or whatever. That it's relatable. I guess that's what I'm saying, that a lot of people can relate to the story. And so I guess my big thing now is, what can we do together to get this book and this story into the hands of people that need it?
Well, I think we're doing, something along those lines, certainly a start, just by doing the podcast. And the people who, your listeners, if they are interested, can certainly buy it. It's on Amazon. Mm-hmm. But also, for people who maybe you don't have children, or, your children are older, but still, if you talk to teachers and counselors and other parents, just kind of doing a word of mouth campaign, that would certainly help to get the book in the hands of the students who need it, because that was the impetus behind this. This was not about, I'm going to be an author and be famous. Right. This was about, how can I help children who are going through this?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so everybody, this book is available on Amazon. You can go to Amazon, and it is $9.99. How many chapters are in the book, Kimberly?
There are 9 chapters.
Okay, so there's 9 chapters. It's fairly short.
Yes.
If you are a parent, it would be a good book to either read with your child, or if you are a teacher or somebody in the education field, this would be a perfect book for you to pick up and just have on hand.
Yes.
I think if we could get it into either school libraries or libraries, that would also be a benefit. So that's something that I think we should look into. So listeners, if you've got any suggestions about how we can get a couple of these, a couple copies in some local libraries or school libraries, we would love to do that, because booking around town isn't just about us, talking about YA books or fantasy or things like that. It's also about helping people and children's literacy, and also helping people through whatever struggles they may be facing. And again, I'm in love with the book cover. I don't know, it's something about the way the person drew the crayons. It just looks so, I know it's weird, but I'm a big cover person, and I feel like if I'm drawn to it, then kids also will connect with the book cover. But what I wanted to ask you was, so after this particular book, do you see yourself writing anything that's on the same kind of wavelength as this book, with either a little girl or some other tone, or do you think this one kind of goes through everything or provides everything in this story, and you don't necessarily have to do anything else after this one?
I don't think any one book could ever go through everything, because there's so many human experiences available. I'm already working on my second book. It's about, briefly, about a little girl whose mother is an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah. So I see a theme here. It's
yes.
there's a theme, and it's welcomed, because, like you said, you don't find a lot of children's or middle grade books that really touch on these subject matter. We get, young adult, and they kind of skim through it a little bit, and then the child is rebellious, and, they follow in the parents' footsteps or whatever, and older children can read that. But seeing it from this level, you can kind of help people earlier, before they become teens. And see, I picked up on that.
Yes.
and again, so many people relate to this, and even though it's written for our culture, for African Americans, but there are so many other people that face that too. And so, even though, this is kind of our demographic, like you said, other people can relate to it too, because situations are not based on, just our race. A lot of people face these things. And so, so when can we look forward to the next book releasing?
Oh, well, it's still in the writing stages.
I like the face that you made.
Well, it's funny because the Megan Mack, who is the illustrator of When Davonte's Father Went to Prison, already asked me, so when are you going to have chapters ready for me to illustrate the next one? And I was like, I'm still outlining, because see, I do a great deal of background work.
Mm-hmm.
I do character profiles. I outline the storyline so that I don't have holes. I do all of that work. And then when I sit down to write, I just write and it flows, and I don't have to go back and, delete entire portions of my manuscript.
That's because you're a teacher. So you
Yes.
already have that sort of organization where it's like, bam, 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 bam. Okay, now I'm ready to do this. And
Right.
people, see, that's the one thing you and I don't have in common. I am not structured. I should probably learn to be.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm at home and it's time to clean up, well, I'm not so structured. But if it's about work and something that's really important to me, then I do my background work first. I do my research, because I don't ever want to have my name on something and have it be incorrect.
Yes,
or done improperly.
Exactly. And what you're writing is so important to do that, because
Right.
it's not just, it's not fiction. I mean, it is, but it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's a fictionalized retelling of a horrible circumstance that a lot of children experience.
Yes, that you said that so nicely. Write that down so I can say that again somewhere else.
Well, you have the recording.
I do. I'll have to just go back and listen to it and take some notes. But it's been such a pleasure chatting with you, because I think there should be more episodes about things like this that can really touch people, especially children. I don't have any children, but I think everybody is affected by a child in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it's a cousin or you've got a friend who's got kids and things like that. And so it's really good to be able to relate to things through books that will help me be able to help some of those kids. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to talk to my church and see if we can get a couple of copies too, because in churches, we have people who experience this as well. And
Yes.
we don't think that happens, but it does. And so that's a good, I think, a good place for us to start in those libraries. So I'm all on board with helping spread the word about when Davonte's father went to prison. And also we'll be waiting for Kimberly's next book that will come out after she's done all of her leg work.
Yes.
And so, Kimberly, can you tell our listeners about how they can keep up with you, if you have any social media accounts or a website or anything like that, how they can follow you and see what's coming up next for you?
Yes. I have a Facebook page, and the Facebook page is When Davonte's Father Went to Prison. But of course, when the new book comes out, I will update that with more information.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a Twitter feed at Davonte's Father.
Okay.
And all upcoming information will be published through that as well.
All right, perfect.
I'm working on the website, so
Yay.
that's to be determined.
Okay, perfect. And everybody, so Davonte is spelled Daronte. So make sure that you write that down. And so that you can go and check out Kim's information on Facebook and follow her on Twitter for all the next updates. And Kim, are you doing, will you be out doing any type of book signings or anything like that? Because I always think that's fun when you can meet the author and all of that. So any idea if you'll be
Yes,
doing
I
any
am
of those?
planning a local mini tour of elementary schools here in the Dallas area in December.
That's
And
lovely.
after that, we'll have to see.
Okay, good. And so on your, I was going to say on your website, we can see the tour schedule, but
It will be posted on Facebook and Twitter.
okay, Facebook and Twitter, we can see the tour schedule. So if you are in the Dallas area, be sure that you are following at Kimberly so that you can go by and pick up some books for people. Just pick up some. And, Christmas is coming. People need
Yes,
books. Uh,
yes.
Christmas is perfect time for giving, stocking stuffers and things like that. So,
Mhm.
but Kimberly, I want to thank you so much for being on Booking Around Town and chatting with me today. And
Thank you, Jacqueline, for having me.
you're welcome. And I will be following you, of course, and you and I will be chatting again outside of this podcast, and I will be keeping up with you and sharing with my followers and listeners about what you're doing, and we'll just get a nice
Sure.
collection of books because I'm sure it's not going to just stop with these two,
It
and
won't.
I'll be patiently waiting for them and tapping my fingers like, did you get that outline done yet? Okay, we're waiting. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Booking Around Town. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook at Booking Around Town. Also, follow us on Twitter at Booking Around TWN and also on Instagram at Booking Around Town. This and all other episodes can be streamed from our website at www.theaudioflow.online. We're also streaming on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and you can download all episodes from iTunes and Google Play. And let's not forget, we're on YouTube. We kind of cover all of our bases with everything. Thanks so much to my producer, Danielle at Firefly Productions, and my assistant, Rebecca, for keeping me in check. And until next time, everybody, remember, keep booking. Have a great week. Bye.